Today, we're honored to have Wes Luster, a visionary artist, musician, and visionary behind Integrated OKC. Wes blends folk art, portraiture, and music to explore identity and heritage, all while championing BIPOC communities. Get ready for a deep dive into his creative world and powerful storytelling. This program is part of the Scene Projects podcast network. The Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are. Well, welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is Wes Luster. Wes, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Bubba. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I feel like this has kind of been a long time coming. A huge fan of what you're doing down there in Oklahoma City, and a big fan of your art too. We can see some of that behind you there on the wall. Before we get into all the things that you're up to now, kind of reinvigorating the integrated OKC programming, let's talk a little bit about your backstory and kind of bring us up to date.
Well, man, I guess to get started, I was an artist from a very young age, so I kind of always had a pencil in my hand, doodling while the teacher was talking. Definitely was a doodler, you know, always into like anime illustrations, cartoons and stuff like that. That kind of inspired me, comics, and so I kind of just made a promise to myself to never not do that. So I've been doing that ever since that time. I was selling artwork to my teachers in college. I have a degree in biology, so went to Rose State, then Oklahoma State University, and saw that even though I hadn't had a degree, I was already making money in the artwork. It was something I was passionate about, so I just have kept doing that regardless of anything else.
Nice. So even though you have a degree in biology, which most people wouldn't really relate much to the art world, I'm sure that degree kind of helps you when you talk about, drawing the human form or animal forms and things like that. This intimate knowledge of, I'm sure, anatomy as well kind of helps inform your artistic expression too, I would assume.
I mean, it definitely helps out in like in a mind space way where it feels like I'm a little bit more well-rounded, where I kind of have that science and it's like a different part of my brain as opposed to the artwork. So, I think I have ADHD really bad. So being able to switch gears like that really helps me live.
Honestly, what artist doesn't have some form of the attention deficit or whatever you want to call it? I call it a superpower, man. My ADHD, I've never been diagnosed, but I mean, you can look around my office and watch me work as I'm producing the show in the background and doing all like I've finally found something that works with me and that I can wield that kind of different brain chemistry that I have as a true weapon and as a superpower rather than a detriment.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, even playing guitar and singing, right? Like all your everything's moving at the same time and the brain is firing. I almost need that in my daily life. Can you kind of speak to that in the art world, working in the same way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, if you're an artist, and this is kind of the source of my podcast, Integrated OKC, as well, is that I talk to artists, musicians, and entrepreneurs. Because if you're an artist, you're also an entrepreneur. You kind of can't get around having to be able to run a business and do the art unless it's just a hobby. But for me, it's not just a hobby; it's a passion as well as a business. And so at times I have to look at it that way. And, that requires you to jump from being a CEO to producer and also the R&D, your own research and development. You have to be your own marketer as well as your own salesperson and your own social media person as well as your own editor. And so you're wearing all these different hats and like, whew, but it's fun.
Yeah, not only are we like wearing them, but we're exchanging them rapidly, right? And we're wearing sometimes six of them stacked on top of each other. And I feel you.
Right. I mean, and it also helps a lot, like when I'm thinking about how I can be more productive or how I can work with what I have, because of like the science brain has kind of taught me to understand some words and some ideas that probably would trip up a lot of people who just like, haven't dealt with it. And so, say for example, not knowing that people don't really multitask, they just switch. Like you said, we switch the hats over and over in different ways, and but you're working on one at a time. So that really helps me is with my ADHD, that I'm going to work with one thing at a time until I kind of get as close as I can, and then I'm switching to another thing to focus on, because when we try to do too much at once, your brain kind of just gets frazzled, and you don't get anything done really.
Right. You never complete anything. You get a lot of work done, but nothing gets completed. So it looks like nothing's actually gotten done. And
Exactly.
that's really for myself is seeing things through, right? I can do five things at once. And we're always, and in this world now, you're taking in so much information. I mean, I got 8 tabs on this browser open right now. And at any moment, one of them can go off and distract you and take you down something. But you have to be able to prioritize those things and to go, hey, that thing can wait, put the phone on DND, right? And let it alone and kind of put at least one of the distractions down and focus on what you're doing. For me, podcasting has really made that possible to just sit down and to have conversations instead of being distracted. Right.
Right.
I kind of turn everything else off when we're recording and it's just me and you having a conversation or whoever I am, 3, 4 times a day that I'm sitting down to do interviews, it seems like lately. And I can just really dial in on that conversation for the moment, even though I may be, producing the show in the background. It's not necessarily distracting me and taking my focus away from what's right in front of me.
Right. And you probably have your workflow too, You've been doing this for a fair amount of, I don't know how many episodes you have yet, but you have your way of setting things up and knowing where things are. So like, it's like every episode you get to spend more time having the conversation and less time buttling with all the rest of the crap that you have around.
Man, StreamYard's been a game changer for us. We just moved over here. I'd gotten the program a while back, but I never used it. I never really had the reason to. I was doing most of my podcast episodes audio only and just kind of
Mhm.
getting on the phone with my friends. And that's really how our first 100 episodes last year started. We just started in March, April of 2024. So timeline wise, we haven't necessarily been at this for a long time, but I've spent most of my life now on stage doing everything in a live capacity, right? Playing live performances and setting up, producing the shows, managing the band on stage, guiding everyone through the song. So I already had a lot of experience in the multitasking of production. And as we've moved through the last 9 months or so, that we've moved into the YouTube space, started recording on mostly Zoom, where it was really simple, and just really unlocked StreamYard the last 2 weeks, where now I can fully produce the show because I hate editing, Wes. That's really what it comes down to, is that I don't want to sit behind the scenes after the show is done and watch it 3 times and do all that. Like, no, man, it's already over and done with. Let's just run it out there and get it scheduled. And that's how we've been able to, get over 250 episodes out in a year and a half. And when I was at Podcast Movement, we were talking about that down in Dallas last month, that people were blown away. They're like, oh my God, how can you do that? And it's like, well, when you sit down, and this is all that I do. I mean, it's not all that I do, but it's the
Mhm.
podcast and our network and growing this business, because I've always thought of it that way. It was never some kind of pet project. Oh, I'll do this podcast as a lead generator for my other business. It was like, no, we're building a podcast that is itself a network of its own, plus every other show that we want to and every other avenue that we want to go in can be a show and a network of their own. So I had
Mm.
a very like 10,000 foot view of it early on. And it was just a matter of establishing the different properties. Sometimes it was just putting a name and grabbing the YouTube space and letting it sit. Right. And then others have completely, kind of taken over and run it. The Scene Projects, obviously, because of my position in the art world and in the music spaces, right? I had a lot of people to go to already. But
Mhm.
now, with the advent of our Patriot Broadcasting Network last November, I kind of built it early, knowing that I wanted to talk about some political things and to share some of those stories that didn't necessarily fit in the Scene Projects box. right?
Right.
But
Right.
now when because I've established this and we've been running a Facebook page for a while, now I've interviewed several state representatives. I've interviewed a US congressional candidate here in South Dakota, and people are coming to us with their stories that don't necessarily fit the TSP model, but they're perfect for this other kind of news and supporting the little man, right? Like that's what I'm all about, is personal property rights and just stories about how the government has kind of oppressed us as people and bringing that to the forefront. And lately it's really picking up some traction, and I shoot at least one of those episodes now a week, where I maybe went 6 months without doing any, right? So it's having
Right.
the properties that I can slowly fill up with things. And right now Scene Projects episodes are scheduled out 3 to 6 months.
That's awesome, dude. Okay, trying to get there right now. I'm the only one working on my podcast because it's interesting how you came from a 10,000 foot view, and I just was like, okay, I have this idea. I'm into music and I'm into art, so we're gonna start there. And I have this vast network of artists and musicians. So to me, it kind of felt like a wellspring type of uh, content, evergreen, because it's all about stories, it's all about experience, it's the business that people end up going through and hearing how they navigate those things. And so then that can be something that's helpful to other artists and helpful to other musicians or other creative entrepreneurs who are out here, you know, trying to do and live their dream out. And there's not always like a guidepost for how to do that. And so,
No, and because it's such a new media, I know podcasting has been around for a long time, but people didn't know what it was, right? Until maybe the last 12 to 24 months, right? And maybe a little bit longer than that. But anyone who's on YouTube with a show, that's a podcast, right? So you have all of these things. And when Elon Musk came out last October and was like, we are the media now, I was like, oh, he's talking to me. He's talking about me and what I'm doing. And that eventually, I don't know that we'll ever get to millions of followers, but people already come to us for their information, right? We are trusted in our field to deliver this information. And the longer you go about doing these things, the more people are going to trust you. Now, we don't have any advantages working for us. I'm not friends with Joe Rogan. I am not covering, and I don't have access to high profile individuals that are coming on the show and then are able to roll those things. Where I try to work in is to shine a light in the dark corners of it, right? We're out here in the Midwest. We're all about Midwestern artists and musicians. And that's what really drew me to your show in the first place, was seeing someone that was doing essentially the same thing that I am. Even though you had your own career, you were willing to turn that camera around and to turn that spotlight onto your guests who were also working in the same field as you, and realizing that it's not competition. It's all about collaboration.
exactly, 1,000%. And I guess I haven't really thought about that, where it's like, oh, you're glazing your ops. Like, no, that's not even how I see it. I'm not. It's totally a collaborative uh, operation, because when you try to compare multiple artists to each other, you kind of can't, because we all come from different backgrounds, we all come from different perspectives, different inspirations, and guideposts as artists ourselves. So we're all coming from completely different universes. And all that is completely up to the market as to how subjective the art they're going to connect with is. And so to me, it can even be a competition, like maybe between me and like other portrait artists. That like would be like the closest competition, because we're like so deep in the same niche. But even if you look at, this is one of my pieces called Oshun. It's one of my friends. I personally know him, Javier Navarrete. He is a dope Afro-Cuban drummer in Oakland, and I teach at or I counsel at a music camp in California called Jam Camp West. So this is kind of pick some energy just from the camp and everything that's shared during the week. And it's not exactly the same color as like his natural skin is, anything like that. It's very impressionistic, very expressive. Um, and so, again, I'm in my own niche even within portraits. So it's something that I think can be shared. And like I said, the podcast is a wellspring type idea. There's so many artists that we could talk to, and there's so many talents been very inspiring for me personally to see what everybody is like doing, the stories and the places that they've been. It's kind of crazy.
No, I feel you, man, 100%. And having done, close to 300 interviews at this point, and not,
Which is
I
insane,
mean,
by the way. Congratulations. That's
I,
crazy.
well, I love having conversations and meeting new people, right? So thank God that I finally found podcasting as somewhere to play around in, and
Mhm.
finding out how that makes money, not just for myself, but for other podcasters on our network. Now we have several now other hosts that, collaborate with us on some shows, but they have their own shows that are featured on the network. And instead of everyone being out there trying to grow their own YouTube channels, which we are independently as well, that we're kind of putting it out all under the one umbrella, at least the long form episodes and some of the shorts, because we're using some really powerful AI software to edit and to release our stuff. Shout out to Podcast AI for everything that they've done for our business, to where we were able to rapidly accelerate our views. I mean, we went from a few thousand views in March to over 230,000 views now on our YouTube channel, which just began in January. And some people have been, kind of toiling at the YouTube game for 10 years, not knowing what to do. And what I say that our mission is to shorten that learning curve. Come be a part of the network. Let us teach you what we know, and using things like our Midwest Original Music Organization Facebook group and the Midwest Podcasting Network and organization groups on Facebook to grow that community. And then as people are ready to kind of get off the sideline and into the game, that we're able to accelerate their timeline faster than they could ever figure it out for themselves. And even, the smartest, YouTube searcher to find what you need to do, to be able to find all the information and implement it at the same time, and find the right programs and to find the different communities to be inside of. It's time consuming. So we're trying to shorten that time gap, bring people up to speed as fast as we can, and really be able to launch, what I say is 1 million podcasters in my life, because I believe that podcasts are how the world is changing. I believe that's how God is changing the world, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it. I believe that these conversations are how we get there, right? So we're building the roadmap for how we get better.
It's definitely a great way to kind of break into spaces where people are already working or just like thinking about things. It's a great way to bring up thoughts and ideas that aren't being spoken about most of the time. So, like I said, it just depends on what your focus is. And it sounds like you guys are doing a great thing over there. I hope to expand my podcast out to different states as well. I mean, I have people who are already down, like some people who are within the Burning Man community to do insanely large sculptures, like kind of the artists, people I know that are connected to that. So there's a lot of very interesting people in the world doing very, very different art, and I feel that affecting me as well as the people who, they message me after an episode comes out and say like that really helped me think about something with my business as it relates to art. So that feels really good. And even though it's just me doing all the editing and trying to figure it all out, um, I'm lucky that I have a background in a lot of it.
Right. And that's definitely where because I didn't come from that editing and having a lot of technical ability background, like the editing process took me forever, to the point where I was just like, I'm done. Everything's going out raw at this point. I don't even care.
Right.
And like I said, very thankful for a program like StreamYard, which we pay for, right? Like we pay for it in the network to have it. But then I'm able to produce everything and get a much higher production value without having to go in the background and to do a lot of stuff that I just don't like spending time. I much rather spend time having conversations. And that's why I do, 12 to 16 interviews a week.
Right. I mean, that's insane, dude. It'd be cool if I could do that. I had a different idea. Like, I'm an artist, right? So when I have an idea for something, it's going to be huge. Like, I came up with this idea for the podcast, like, right before, like, our lockdown, and I was still living in California at the time. And I had this idea for kind of, like I said, a talk show that's kind of a mix of a tiny desk, because I'm talking to musicians, and if they wanted to, they could do a performance after the interview. So my first episode that came out with Olivia Comacheat. She's an amazing Native American musician, multi-instrumentalist. She did a great show at the very end of it, and like you could actually see me in the mirror in the house, like it's the Airbnb that I'm recording in, and I'm just jamming in the background, like, listening to the audio, because I play guitar too, and so I'm into the audio, video. I can do the editing of both. So I'm over there looking at the Audacity because it's an open source free program, and jamming, and like it was so cool to be able to actually. That was 3 years later. I didn't do it. I was saving up and buying equipment like a little GoPro, the SM7B, just whatever equipment I had, and pulled it together, and you know it's been crazy to see it come together. But I actually had to take a break.
Yeah, well, and that's what we can kind of get to, because I think I've been following, or at least I saw your show at least over a year ago, kind of through different networks and looking around. But even that episode was a few years old at that point. But I loved the concept, and it wasn't just the production value. Like the space was awesome, the Airbnb was super cool, the content of the interview was awesome, and having her perform, and like everything about the concept was great. But yeah, moving and other things, right? Being in the lockdown, like it kind of puts you on a hiatus, and now you're just really getting back into releasing episodes and recording episodes. Tell us a little bit about maybe some recent guests that you just had, or any kind of new things that you're bringing to the table now with the reboot here.
Well, nowadays I know that I'm bringing a whole lot more of my network, like just I'm a whole lot more confident now than I was even then, and my foresight a little bit for who to bring on, when, and how is, I feel like, more strategic. So the building that I'm recording in right now, it sits right across the street from the Oklahoma City Bomb Memorial building, like the memorial building. And so you can actually see it in my new shots. That if you look on there, you see the new space. And I have a family member who's actually a firefighter on the day of. And so this year I decided to bring on key people as well as artists, musicians, and entrepreneurs. And, in effect, maybe we could integrate OKC even more, where artists now directly, seeing and tied to these other people as well. And so, but maybe that's a good example of me utilizing my network in a different way, where I see an opportunity. Like that's kind of I feel like that's a huge thing, and he said he would do it just because, of his relationship with me. So it feels like a very special thing to have a conversation about, maybe what was that like for him as somebody who supported a lot of people on a very, very horrible day in Oklahoma history, and like United States history. So it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the moment in Oklahoma's city's history, right? I mean, it's hard for anyone not to think of that, and what a great thing to have as the backdrop to a show named Integrated OKC, right? And a show that's looking to rebuild the legacy of the city, and honoring those people who were killed that day. And a big shout out to your family member for their work, and I'm sure what they've endured. I love that you're willing to have some of these people on and to talk about that, and to stretch outside of the art community. There's a lot of great stories out there, just of, I don't want to say regular people, right, but people that are outside of the artistic side that have a story to tell. And it's important. Like everyone's story is important. It's lovely that we can get on and we can support our artists and give them a chance to promote their art and their music, but to get other stories out there and to be able that maybe nobody's heard, right? And even if nobody's watching, now there's at least an archive of this, and maybe it will be their children or their children's children, hopefully, that will be able to return to this and hear something maybe that they would never be comfortable telling their grandchildren about, right? And sharing these stories and getting to know the people, that they love. I talk about it all the time that like, this is my legacy for my children as well. They're going to get to know me much more through the show than being their dad, because I'm not dad when I'm here talking to you, right? It's a different Bubba that's stepping up to the plate here. So yeah, I love what you're doing, man, and love the look of the. How high up are you?
I'm sitting on the ground right now, actually. What do you mean?
No, yeah, no. I meant when you're filming. What floor are you on?
Sixth floor of the building.
It's a really cool view, man, and that's the first thing that caught my eye as you rebooted and put the episode. I was like, "Ooh, new studio space," and really love the aerial view, and you can see everything out there too. It's not necessarily just getting washed out. Or you could have closed the blinds and say, "Hey, we're not going to show that," right? But you decided not to, and you made a creative decision to showcase that memorial, and I think that's just so cool.
Thanks, man. I mean, because it's like you have a unique opportunity to do that. And again, it's like, what's your focus, or how do you execute what it is that you're trying to do? And so I kind of always try to execute with a fair amount of intention, so that, I feel like the effect can be, or the impact can be maximized, and just really utilizing the position that I have. And the position that I'm creating, because it's definitely still a building podcast. I haven't even monetized it yet. I'm like at 167 subscribers, and counting with every episode, especially now that I'm rolling them out more effectively. But it's really awesome to see. I have another 4 episodes that are about to come out, or three. So. And I'm actually about to go to Oakland and interview a couple of people as well at the end of the month. So it's gonna be it's really cool to do this stuff, even though it's a lot of work.
Right. Hey, I feel you on the work. Last weekend, I got to cover a PGA Tour event here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, close to where I'm from. I was in a press conference with NFL Hall of Famers Rondé Barber and Chris Carter. Also, World Golf Hall of Famer and 6-time major champion Sir Nick Faldo. He got a shot in on me for referring to the Open as one of the other major championships. So good. Oh, that was by far my wife's favorite moment of being there. Like, they're making fun of you. I was like, well, he's a knight, so I'm not going to take any offense to it whatsoever.
Right. So we're going to roll with it, and it's content. Everything is content.
Yeah. Well, and I just got to release that episode, and just, it was a joy. But most of the time that I spent at the event was interviewing the nonprofits and the charities that are there, raising money and raising awareness about what they're doing. So, I mean, that's what I'm really about. When I say shining a light in the dark corners, it's all of those corners. I'm shining a light on the people who are worthy, not just the people who are the stars of the show. Right. And it doesn't take, if you're out there serving a community, then you're more than worthy of the attention that I'm willing to give you and the attention of our fan base.
Man, I appreciate that for sure. I absolutely appreciate that, because, we all have to work together to kind of build up and build relationships. And I learned life is definitely about people. It's not very much about things. Things are kind of like the peripheral surrounding the people. So if you focus on that, you're going to miss out on a lot of what the world has to offer. And so, I think I've seen a lot of rewards just from the stories that I've been able to listen to and then share with the great community. And so it's wellspring concept. And to me, that's definitely just a wellspring concept.
Well, and it's a wellspring of energy, of fresh energy for yourself to be inspired and to keep going. And, I interview so many musicians that I'm just like, man, compared to you, like, I don't even play music. And I've been doing it for 25 years. I play a lot better than like most people who don't perform for a living. Right. But I watch some of these bands and I'm just like, man, I'm so jealous of that, right. Of your band or that song that you wrote, and not jealous in like the concept of like, I wish I had wrote it, but just like, man, you're so talented. You're so talented, and nobody knows who you are. So I really set out with the mission at the Scene Projects to change that and to
Right.
do whatever small thing that we could to bring that attention where it's needed and where it's deserving. And one of those places is right with you, Wes. I think you're a brilliant artist. I love what you're doing with the podcast. Where can everybody find you so we can help you get that subscriber model, that subscriber count up, and get you monetized, brother?
Yeah, man. You guys can find me on YouTube at Integrated OKC, so spelled normally. And you can also find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You know, get 10 downloads a month on Spotify. That'd be amazing. You know, help me boost up the signal of me and but really these other artists because like I really want to see that come together. Also, you can find my art at wesleyluster.art on Instagram and all social media platforms. You'll be able to see all these beautiful paintings.
Yeah, well, I highly encourage everybody go and follow your IG page. I've been thrilled to be in your circle here for a while. I'm really happy that we got a chance to lock this in finally. And Wes, you know, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and thanks for being part of the scene.
Absolutely, dude. I'm here, brother. So thank you all for the talk, dude. I'll catch you guys later.